Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All-In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and I am joined by Kevin and Mitchell. Unfortunately, Alistair has a valid excuse for not being here this time. He is, I believe, on break. He was traveling. Last I saw on Discord, he was trying to catch a flight. Looks like he having some issues there, so I'm hoping he made it okay. I'm trusting that he did, but we've got a lot of LCS to recap. I mean, this was an exciting game, exciting set of games this weekend. I mean, we had I have to start off by saying, what was the biggest surprise for you guys? Was it that 100 Thieves straight up swept C9? Or was it that EG took TL to 5 games? Because honestly, both of those, I think, kind of went against maybe what most people were thinking might happen for this opening round of the playoffs. So, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
What's the biggest surprise?
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise to me was definitely Alistair on Discord just being like, "Hey, how do I fly?" Remember you just asking us, you didn't know how to fly in Discord. We're just like, okay, we didn't know you were flying anywhere.
That's right.
So I guess he's just practicing. When he eventually becomes a pro player, he's practicing his airport speedrun, right?
Nice.
So when he does get to Worlds, he'll just know how to use an airport. Anyways,
Yeah.
I think that obviously the biggest surprise was the C900 Thieves series. I think for
Okay.
everybody, like such a dramatic 3-0, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't even like a close 3-0. It was an absolute stomping. It was like game 2 was close, but game 1 and 3 were not. And I think the salty runback of the draft is also like adds into how bad it was, like how unexpectedly terrible it was. Because the EG versus TL series, while it was a little surprising, it kind of felt like, you know what, you saw Impact play and you're like, oh, that's right, playoff Impact's a thing, and he actually played so freaking well. So yeah, the C900 Thieves one was very surprising.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on a similar boat with Mitch here. I will say that like I was a little bit more surprised. Like I think the difference in surprise was not as big for me because like for me, TLEG, like if I hadn't seen the series, I'd be like, yeah, this isn't close. But then yeah, playoff impact. There's like a lot more. There was just like a lot more poise from that team, and like I had always known that C9. First of all, C9 had an awful last 2 weeks. They had a worse record than TSM the last 2 weeks, which I didn't mention before. But they were 2-3 versus TSM's 3-2. Like that's not
Wow.
great. And then C9 in playoffs, like I just remember Blabber in front of an audience, and then I was like, I don't know how Summit will play, but I mean he has experience at least. And then Berserker Winsome have never played in front of an audience, so I was like, I don't expect anything from this team, like at all. Not anything, but I expect a lot less. That being said, a 3-0 stop with like only signs of life in like 1.5 games was awful. So I agree. C9's the bigger surprise.
Yeah, I think, man, I'm so glad you mentioned the crowd, because this was also the first time the crowd has been in the studio in such a long time. And I got to say, what a refreshing change. Just the fact that they were even chanting TSM at one point when they're not even there. I was so glad that they did that, as like, yes, like we have an audience back. But you mentioned that, and we've been talking about this. How would the people who haven't had much experience in front of crowds, like how would they do, and they definitely look unprepared, but I think, maybe some of it was nerves as well, right? Like, I remember the first play of the first game, I think it was an invade, and we saw several missed shots there, and it was just really ugly. They got the first blood. 100 Thieves ended up getting first blood, but it was
worst
still
way possible.
in the worst way possible. So definitely, I think some jitters there, but let's talk about, is this more of, because, I don't want to take away from 100 Thieves. They did play super well. I mean, even freaking who I thought was not doing that well, like actually like was amazing this game or this series. And, I don't know, like, was it more of C9 just, dropping the ball, or 100 Thieves actually peaking like playoff time? You know what I mean?
So I definitely think that it's a bit of both. And to be fair to 100 Thieves, I think this is the first time for many of their players I mean, I think they've been in front of audiences before COVID, but they were never a championship team or
Mm-hmm.
like that Golden Guardians run where most of this roster is from. That was in 2020, I believe, and that was still during COVID. So it's still been a while for this team where most of their players have actually had any sort of success in front of live audiences. So this is a big deal for 100 Thieves players too to actually get that under their belt. And shout out to them. I think they played really, really well. I think I hyped them up a lot last
Mm-hmm.
podcast, and I've been kind of slowly hyping them up throughout the throughout the season, being like, "Hey, they look terrible, but they're still gonna come around in playoffs." And they did it. They did it. They have
Yeah.
swayed me. I do not think C9 is even remotely a favorite to win this championship. I'm not gonna count them out,
Crazy.
but 100 Thieves is definitely 1-2 with Team Liquid with me. I don't think like I could see EG being above C9 at this point. Like, oh my god, like C9 dropped the ball, right? I think Blabber's jitters very clearly was apparent on stage,
Uh-huh.
but Summit also very clearly not playing that great on stage. I think the big thing though that does not matter between stage or not is their preparation and their decision to draft that way. And that to me is what is the like final straw of me just kind of jumping off the C9 train. Like
Wow.
it was such terrible drafting and such terrible mentality. Like I felt like that salty runback was like the most disgusting thing ever. Like pick Zeri, fine. Everything else could have gone, right? I'm like definitely get rid of the Renekton. Definitely like consider not going for the Rise because I think the Rise has had a terrible win rate across the entire world. Ever since it
Mm.
got nerfed, it's the champion that Faker has lost the most on in
Mm.
LCK, and it's a champion that has a pretty awful win rate in playoffs for most regions right now. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure in an LEC match, Rise went like 0-2 or 0-3 or something. So
Mm-hmm.
I just think that C9's draft was terrible, and that the way that they're going for such lane dominant strategies, we just literally saw EG do it and do it way better than C9 doing lane dominant strategies, and they
Mm-hmm.
still lost to the
Yeah.
5v5 team comps. I think it's just the way to play the game. 100 Thieves and TL teams to beat 5v5 team comps. So,
Wow.
yep.
Yeah, I thought the Renekton was terrible. I think that the only way it was excused is Impact was 3-1 on Renekton before this like playoffs. So like him
Yeah.
picking it, okay, I sort of understand that. But for this team, like he got like triple or quadra banned for Summit. They were just taking all his characters off the table, and like something LS mentioned on stream was like Summit's only played like 5 or 6 characters ever more than once in pro play.
Yeah,
And I was
that's
like,
interesting.
what? This guy's been around for so many years, like at least three
Yep.
plus years on Sandbox, right? So that's ridiculous. I thought the Renata pick was actually fine. Renata is actually a great pick into Nautilus. It does a lot of things that Nautilus doesn't want to play into, right? Because all the time it takes for Nautilus ult to come over, you can just counter ult. You can literally stop Nautilus hook with your hook. So like, what does Nautilus do? And Nautilus is the counter pick to Zeri. So I thought that was fine. You also saw the Zeri Renata combo pop off. However, Rise was just like not a factor. Dude, Fudge looked like a bottom 5 mid laner in 2 games. And like
Mm-hmm.
not because he was power inting, but because he was useless. He did nothing. In game 1 he did like 7k damage or 6k. It was absolutely disgusting. So what I wanted to say about this was that I think C9 got rid of LS not so Max Waldo could be coach, but so that they could become a player run team.
Mm.
I think that this was a player decision because Max Waldo, from literally everything that everyone said that knows him, is that he's very similar to LS. But we haven't seen a creative draft since LS left. Like, yeah, the week he left, they put something new in, but then afterward, like, it's been more or less just like bog standard. Like, you don't see Summit playing Malphite into a good matchup. You just see him picking his 5 characters he's ever played in
Yep.
his life. So I think C9 just like, and you can be a player run team, by the way. T1 is basically coached by Faker. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying that if you don't have the leadership for that or the brains for it, frankly, like you're just gonna look like this.
And you're also not T1 too, because T1
Yep.
drafts the same style of incredibly lane dominant strategies where their comps are actually straight booty, right? T1 drafts terrible comps all the time, but it's Faker's LeBlanc, right? And it's like
Mm-hmm.
owner's Lee Sin. Like it doesn't matter that their comp sucks because they're so good at their champions that the individual skill difference overrides any comp difference, right? We're just
Yeah.
not at that point. C9 is not anywhere close to that point, right? We called Summit budget shy because he can't do it. He can't do
Hmm.
what the shy does. He can do a little bit, and honestly, as like a coming into the playoffs C9 fan, I was honestly ready if C9 won the series and they pulled out different drafts. I was just ready to go down the train. Like, yeah, honestly, C9 has probably been hiding strats all season long, playing these really weird lane dominant strategies just so that they can save their actual drafts for playoffs. Just kidding. That was all a joke. That didn't
You gave
happen.
them too much credit, man.
They came into the playoffs and just did the exact same stuff that they've been doing all year long, win or lose. And I was just like, oh, so what do you guys even practice? What are you guys even scrimming? Like,
Yeah.
does Summit really need more scrim and Champions Queue on the same 6 champions? Like,
Yeah.
so um, I think C9's really disappointing. Like, unless they beat who is it? Golden Guardians, and then they come into winning the lower bracket, doing some unique something drafts, and we're talking about it next week where they're actually picking different champions. I think
Yeah.
they're gonna peak out at third or fourth place this split. There's just no way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here now. So here's what I think pretty much happened, right? Summit was popping off regular season. C9, looked amazing. Even Fudge was looking good. Blabber was looking good. But I think what happened is really teams just figured them out. Like, one, with the limited champion pool that we've now been seeing, you can just target ban Summit and you kind of neutralize them. But it's also in that winning during the regular season, I think it kind of cursed C9 because it kind of locked them into this one-dimensional strategy of playing through Summit, right? And now that they've kind of figured out, hey, I could just pick Malphite. I'll just pick red side and counterpick whoever he's playing. And he can't really play anybody else. Like, he hasn't shown too many consistent performances outside of his Jace Gnar and whatever else. But I think that's what happened, and now that them going and whatever in scrims and us seeing them pretty much collapse, like, it makes sense. I think teams have figured out the C9 meta, and C9 doesn't know how to adjust at this point because, frankly, like, we're just not seeing. Berserker has had some pretty good team fights, but we're not really seeing like them being able to adapt. And I'm wondering now. I definitely don't think they're gonna turn it around this tournament. I think they're done. I think they are done. I think even EG could beat them at this point. They've just been figured out. So I think what they need to do is really take a look at having, I don't know, fixing some of these problems, whatever it may be, because this is just not good. I mean, Summit is, and this is what I want to transition into, is like Summit is most likely our MVP. And he was, I don't remember the stat, but I believe he's like 1-21 or something in his previous 3 games, against 100 Thieves. Not counting the very last game, but if it's something like that, it was like 1-21. And he is just not, it just seems like he's playing reckless, and I'm like, at this point, it's like, you got to understand, like, it's not working. Like, something is not happening. You're going to have to, like, play safer or set up more plays for your team.
Yeah, I definitely think that Summit has this playstyle that he's been playing for basically his whole career, and people are going to punish it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, I think what he's trying to do, and I'm not in the back room of C9's coaching staff or anything, but I think what he's trying to do is essentially imitate the Baus, which is he is constantly drawing so much pressure to top side and not demanding any resources from his team at all, and relying on so much of his mechanical prowess to create advantages for his team. But what ends up happening is he just dies anyways, and he doesn't always create the best lane states because the Baus is very different. He's on Scion, so when he's inting across the map and drawing a ton of pressure, he gets to use his Scion passive to fix the wave. Renekton doesn't get to do that. Summit doesn't get to do that. So it's an interesting strategy, but it just doesn't work. Also, when the rest of your team, as in like your carries, your Blabber is slumping, Fudge is non-existent, playing Rise and not roaming, and Winsome, while he is playing Renata Zeri, is a strong combo and is a great matchup into Nautilus in many situations, is not a roaming melee support that can just run top lane like you see Core JJ do all the time and just help him win his lane, right? So it's like a combination of his playstyle just does not match with the other 4 players what they're doing on the map. and it's leading to him also just like I don't know, just like take incredibly overconfident
Yeah.
plays.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just to clarify for the viewers what the scrim tweet was is that apparently in the week coming into the last week of regular season, they were 0-15 in scrims, and one of them was being 0-5 against their own academy team. So then
Not
they had
good.
that terrible, yeah, they had a terrible weekend in the last week, and then they went 0-3 in playoffs. Like, you can say scrim results winning doesn't mean you win the games, but losing scrims can definitely mean you lose games.
Yeah.
So it's a tough world out there for them, and I agree. I think they're done for this split. Yeah,
Sucks.
it's hard to
Disappointing.
come back. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, my brief note on that is like I wanted to be very clear, at least from my end. Like I don't blame a lot of this on Summit. Like there are very few players, not characters, players in the world who can like get 4 bans. Okay, I think it's a condemnation of either the coaching staff or whatever system in place C9 has, or the other players on C9. Like I think Blabber might be world class. I don't think Fudge is like I don't think it's realistic to expect Fudge to be world class yet. He might
Hmm.
be very good for as a role player, but he's just not good enough, right?
Right.
And then the bot lane has a lot of talent in Berserker, and I don't know where Winsome is, but at least as a team, they just don't offer enough to make Summit shine. Like if he is drawing all that pressure, like you see how the Shy right now is like doing well. Okay, they're not. He's doing pretty well compared to last year, right? Because he's not on a bad team anymore. And it's not like he changed his place all that much. Maybe he got a little better, but he's
Hmm.
suddenly looks world class again when he isn't being dragged down by teammates. Summit is the same story to me. Like he's not the real problem. Like yes, he's a problem, but it's just like saying, oh, man, I have the sharpest spear in the world, but I don't have anyone to hold it. So what am I gonna do? I guess it's the spear's fault. No,
Yeah.
we need someone to wield that spear, and there's just nobody there. If Blabber isn't showing up, then it just all falls apart.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of the thing, right? Is that it's not necessarily Summit, it's the C9 strategy has failed, right? So Summit is the top laner. He was their win condition. They figured out how to basically neutralize that, whether it's picking an Ornn, picking a, Malphite, or, just basically like just mitigating that in any way possible. They figured it out. And so it's not, I don't count Summit's fault either. 100%. I do think there is still some things he could do. Like again, champion pool proven that, but I do think it's more of just they haven't as a team been able to adjust and change their strategy. I don't think they're gonna have enough time. The kind of trend, they just unfortunate because they're on a downtrend at the worst possible time, and so just for that reason, I think they're done. But let's kind of talk about 100 Thieves, which is a little funny because Reaper is their coach, and C9 pulled a salty run back on their former coach, and Reaper kind of getting some revenge here. But what do you think it is really that's turning it around for 100 Thieves? Because we know some days amazing, closer has been good. I mean, in this series in particular, although C9 made it a little easy, Abadage actually played pretty well too, which he's been missing a lot in the season. So what are your thoughts, 100 Thieves? Like, why are they peaking now? Like, what's clicking?
I think it's very deliberate by their team. You can see that their brains were off all the way from lock-in up until like halfway through the season, right?
Right.
Or the split. And ever since Reaper left C9 has actually had multiple scenarios where they look like the best team and they just fall off when it matters the most, right?
Yep.
Like C9 last year with Perks, just all of a sudden in the second half of the split they were just terrible, or the second in summer split they were just terrible, and then they were third place at Worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
The year before that, with Niski, they won. They went to MSI. They won Spring. They were looking like the best team coming into Summer Split. Halfway through Summer Split, they just poop out and don't go to Worlds for the first time ever.
Yeah.
It's very deliberate that Reaper, he's not doing any of that. Actually, they suck at the beginning and they get better at the end. Maybe it's because he's just not burning his players out, right? They have a consistent roster. They have a system. They know their players, right? It's like, hey, you know what? We're keeping you. We worked all together last year. Like, we know that we can do this when playoffs hit, and we have faith in our players.
Yeah.
Why should we burn ourselves out during the regular split, right? I think it's why a lot of people who are familiar with the game, in the back of their heads, they say they see Abadage just randomly die to blue, and they see FBI just randomly died a turret to a Tom Kench, and it's just like no one is actually taking away from them that this means they're a bad team. It's because
Mm-hmm.
look what happens. They're peaking. They're actually getting into the groove right now. Um, yeah, they're just such a solid team. Like their macro is so good. Their drafting is really solid. I think they have very wide champion pools just across their entire roster. And Closer is the best jungler in the league, mechanically at least. I don't know, Santorin probably does a lot of invisible stuff that is hard to quantify, but the straight pure mechanics we see on Closer is just so unbelievably nutty. It's too good. He's way too good at Lee Sin. I yeah, so
He is. I
um
mean, I give you that. His mechanics are definitely one of his strong suits.
it's so good. And then if you watch co-stream with Doublelift, Doublelift is an absolute Closer fanboy.
Mm-hmm.
Playing Champions Queue with him, Doublelift very clearly thinks Closer has one of the best mechanics this league has ever seen.
Wow.
And it's pretty exciting to have that on, 100 Thieves, especially when Someday is playing so well too. Oh my
Yeah.
god, this is who I picked to be my MVP. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I think the roster, they're just a smart org, smart team. Yeah.
So I agree with a lot of those comments. Like I think that they're firing on all cylinders. They had good drafts. They had a lot of intelligence there. And like yeah, we even before like playoffs started, they were like on a really big win streak, right? They only had a really catastrophic loss to FlyQuest in the last week. Like it was just an awful loss.
Yeah.
But like if you just look at the record without looking at the games too closely, they were still like on the up and up, even if they didn't look like they were trying. So that's great. I will caution though, the amount of stubbornness that you saw from C9, like the lack of any drafting like sense or just sense to how to play
Yeah.
out the game, also just makes I was gonna say EG also makes 100 Thieves look better, right? Because if you think about it, it's not that hard for Abadage to look good finally when he gets free kills like hand fed to him in level 1 or level 2. Like
Yeah.
it really isn't. I think Closer was playing awesome. I think Closer is the best jungler in terms of, at least in terms of mechanics, with the caveat of in playoffs. He has done it multiple times now where he fires on all cylinders in playoffs, and you're just like, oh, maybe it's the meta, maybe it's whatever, but at the very least, he shows up when it matters. And he's done it in person. Assumedly, he's gotten second place in that Royal team in Turkey when he played there too. You know what I learned? There was a team of Broken Blade, Closer,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Abadage,
Yeah.
and like I forgot the bottom thing was like Dumbledore and someone else who was really good. And I was just like, how the heck did that team not get to Worlds? So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, that was just an interesting tidbit I learned about his career as I was like watching all these shows about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think yeah, Closer is really nuts, and I do have to agree with the drafting though, where it's like I guess if the enemy team always lets you counter pick your solo
Mm-hmm.
laners, it's pretty easy, right? To draft,
Yeah.
because like Abadagi is gonna look real good when you get to play Victor and Arise every game, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just pretty free. Same with like top lane. It's just like some just like I'll just play Ornn, and you just I don't know. You're playing Renekton. You can't kill me ever. Like
Exactly.
you're never gonna kill me in your goddamn life.
Yeah.
So it's true. It's fair. So the big test is gonna be next weekend, or not next weekend
Next,
when
yeah.
TL and 100 Thieves play. So
Yeah, it's definitely making it really exciting. And, you guys said it, like, this is a veteran team. Like, they've been together. Like, they know what to do. It reminds me, if I'm going to put into analogy, like, the NBA, I really watched the Bulls era, where they three-peated, twice. And this was a team who they were really good, but sometimes in the regular season, like, they just didn't look that great. But when it came playoff time, they knew what to do. And part of it was, like, when you're a runner and you're a brand new, let's say, marathon runner, and, as a beginner, you may burn out too fast, right? Because you've never run that kind of pace before, right?
yeah.
But a seasoned runner knows that, hey, I have this long, I should save my, energy here and maybe use it more here. And those are the most seasoned runners. I think with championship teams or teams that are veterans that have been together for a while, they understand this pace of a split. And, like you said, it did seem like their losses early in the season looked like just, oops, brain farts, like kind of like just getting back into the preseason kind of thing, right? And as time has gone on, they've seemed to like really have dialed it in. Everything you guys are saying, but it just feels like they know now, like the pace. They know this is it. This is the time to really start tightening up and making sure everything's clicking. And I am really impressed because this was a team where I thought they had lost direction with not being able to play through bot side as much because of the TP changes. And I really did think, like, what are they going to do? Like, I thought they were the C9 in the beginning where they had one game plan before and now it wasn't working. How are they going to adjust? Well, hello, Someday, he's still freaking good. And hello, Closer, he's a maniac. So, look, they're doing really well now and I'm happy for them. But I want to talk about Team Liquid and EG here because this was another surprise. I know you guys said the other games that were more of a surprise than this one, but honestly, I did not think EG was going to do this well. I mean, they had a terrible record at trying to beat the top teams in the regular season, and we went all the way to Game 5. What are your initial thoughts on either of these teams? Because it still technically was kind of surprising that it went to 5 games.
I think it's likely that maybe EG is trying to follow a similar suit where not doing so hot in the regular season. They did not look good regular season at all.
No,
right?
not
They
at
didn't
all.
look like a top team.
No.
Like, I think in lock-in, you could be like, yeah, this team could be top 2. In the regular season, you're like, I don't even know if this team is top 5.
Yeah.
Right? They barely squeaked into that top 4 spot.
You're right.
But hey, I mean, they're peaking, right? This is probably the best showing we've seen of EG all year long, including lock-in. And you know who their best-looking players were? Freaking Impact, obviously. A playoff Impact,
Veteran.
just a staple. Yep. Veteran, right? And then it's freaking JoJo and Danny, the rookies. They looked so good. Oh my goodness. Vulcan looked okay, honestly, a little hit or miss like he usually is, but Inspired, freaking invisible. That was a jungle diff and a half if I've seen one. So I really think that, I mean, if you just put Closer into that series, like, that is an EG win, honestly.
Wow.
Like, I mean, Closer is a big upgrade over Inspired, so it's a pretty big statement to make, but oh my goodness, like, Inspired was so terrible, and Santorin was just having his way with him. Like, but I mean, EG, honestly, like, I'm really excited for JoJo. I think that he looked like the best Rise player we've seen. Impact's Rise is actually pretty decent too. And I'm of the opinion that Rise is not that good, especially after his nerfs.
Yeah.
But if you have to play it, I think you give it to JoJo because he actually plays the map and he actually runs around. And it's just not what we see from Rises. It feels like they just get stuck in lane and they just get like they can't get out. And JoJo just says, "Screw this, I'm just leaving. I don't care. I'm just gonna leave. I'm going. I'm gonna make something happen because I'm getting outscaled just sitting here mid lane, right?"
Yeah.
So, exciting team. God, how many kills did Danny have that one game? What was it like? Was it 16 kills in that one game on Ezreal? Oh my God, what a monster, right? Against the best players he's probably ever played against in his life. So really exciting stuff to see from our North American players taking this veteran roster to 5 games. I think that it doesn't matter what team you're a fan of. If you're an NA LCS fan, you should be very happy right now, regardless of the outcome. Whoever wins at the end should be happy that 100 Thieves and EG are making our legacy orgs sweat a lot.
Yeah,
a lot. So, yeah, good stuff from EG. I honestly think that their Game 5 draft really just threw themselves under the bus, man. What was that Renekton pick, dude? I don't know.
Dude, Renekton, what? That's why our title is Renekton WTF, man. It was the week of Renektons. Yikes.
It's the week. Like, I actually think that like Impact played probably the best Renekton you could possibly play because he did play it really well. He's just limited by a crappy champion, honestly.
Yeah.
He really was. Like, playing into Sion and against a Tom Kench is just like, I don't want to be Renekton, man. I really don't. I honestly think EG, if they had a different draft, that Game 5 is by no means a for sure TL win at all. So, exciting stuff.
All right, Kevin, come on, man. Give us some TL praise. Let's go.
Since these are my initial thoughts, I'll just keep it a little shorter. For my 2 words, it would be cheeser dogs.
Cheeser dogs.
EG, the whole series was basically cheesing, guys. There were like 3 level 1s, I think, at least, that were like pretty decisive, like one way or another. And they were trying everything. You know, they tried lane swaps, which is a classic cheese. They try, and again,
enough.
this is me being a salty TL fan. I actually appreciate this, by the way. I think this is exactly how you should play as the underdog. They tried
Yep.
lane swaps. They tried Renekton Italy, which is an all-in comp. Like, this is the comp you pick when you either think you're so much better that you're egoing, or you're so much worse that you need to pick something that will win early game and outpace Vhagar, right? So I don't necessarily have an issue with it in that game specifically. They just didn't, like, you saw the fight in bot lane where like TL was like, let's just push down bot and get surrounded. I'm like, oh, this is a classic. And then you saw what the Renekton could do in that comp. I'm like, okay, cool. They were behind and they actually want to fight. The problem is this comp never scales. So I give EG a lot of credit. I do think that still, like, betting on Renekton Italy when you got them to game 5 is a little weird. Like, maybe pick that earlier if you like think you're worse, but you proved you could win in like slightly more normal games, right? So they did what I thought like a better coach team would do, even if the last game was kind of egregious, right, in terms of draft. Like, they had a plan, they went for it, and their rookies like showed up. Like, I think Inspired had like one good game maybe, and then like the other 4 he didn't, which is kind of disappointing for that. But Impact showed up, and the 2 rookies showed up, and that's great.
On stage in front of a live audience for the first time ever.
Yeah,
That's
which is a big
amazing.
deal. This is a
Yeah.
huge deal. You sometimes you can't fix this. Like, some people are like, oh, they'll grow out of it. They'll get used to it. I'm like, I've seen Blabber for a lot of times, right?
Blabber.
So like, yeah, I think that's a great sign for EG, and like shows that they are developing. Because like Jizuke versus Jojo I think Jojo than had a better playoffs than Jizuke last year. Jizuke had a better regular season, but so far, at least, if you work in playoffs, that pays off, right? So I give him a lot of credit. Liquid, solid team. Bjergsen got first blooded by 4 goobers in a bush on his way to mid lane, and then went on to go like legendary in the game as Ahri. It was awesome. And I think that they showed resilience. They did show weakness, like they're not looking as hot as 100 Thieves going in. But honestly, EG is a much harder team than C9, at least that's this weekend.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I was actually really surprised because I thought TL was just going to straight sweep this one because we hadn't seen EG play. Like, I think this is kind of what we were hoping to see like this entire season, but for whatever reason it was not happening, and they just happened to kind of bring it back during this series. But I don't know. I'm not. It's weird because I'm not worried about Team Liquid. I do feel more like kind of what you said, Kevin. Like, they got level 1. I wouldn't say cheese because it almost sounds like it's a cheap shot. I don't think it is. I think it's a great strategy. Like, it's great preparedness. Like, this is how we need to win. So I understand what you're saying. You're not saying they're like cheesing. It's just it's not a usual standard type start. And I think that's very smart. And I'm glad that they did that. But as far as like, just as a whole, I think Team Liquid, at standard, they're and that means a lot of things, but just normal starts, normal lanes, normal plays, I think Team Liquid wins every time. And so I do think Evil Genius just threw some smart wrenches into their game plan. And Bjergsen was interviewed. I think he was saying that this is something that they'll definitely be paying attention to now, is that level 1, like being ready for those things and can't get caught sleeping. But overall, gosh, Santorin, man. He is a monster, dude. He played Viego 3 times. I was like, dude, Closer ain't the only one that can play Viego. And, his J4 too. Like, Santorin to me has just been like a solid rock for Team Liquid. I honestly think, like, it's, I don't want to like upset any Core fans, but I feel like Santorin through this entire season, just because Core hasn't been here the whole time, like, has been that foundation for them. And I'm just really excited to see him with no injuries playing and like really playing peak League of Legends at this point because they really do need him. But going forward, I don't think I have too much to worry about Team Liquid.
Yeah, to comment about the cheeseness, honestly, TL was doing a lot of cheese in the regular season, if you remember. They're doing a lot of mid lane roams and like level 1s and really interesting stuff. And I think that it is appropriate to call it cheese because it's just weird, right? It's unnatural. But I think a natural a natural evolution of the game should be that these kind of stuff should happen every single game. They really should.
Yeah.
If you want like every single percentage point to win the game, you should always mix up your level 1s no matter what. Like, I don't think there's there are reasons to play standard, right? But it's only because you're doing it as a mix-up. Like I feel like you should never have the same level one every single game where you use standard, everybody goes to their 5 spots and they ward and they watch for invade. Like don't do that. It's such a
Hmm.
waste of your time and resources. Like the game starts at 15 seconds, not a minute and 30, right?
Yeah.
So I do love that that's a thing and that I hope if TL ends up representing an MSI, please learn from
Yeah.
this and keep preparing against enemy level ones and creating your own significant level ones because, I mean, you saw in game 4, right? Both TL and EG were ready for the level 1 cheese.
Hmm.
They met in the top lane brush and
Mm-hmm.
freaking EG won and flipped the game there and it's like,
Yeah.
TL needs to learn, like, why did they lose that level 1 cheese? What happened? And you know what? It's just Bwipo running up and autoing people as GP. He just
Yeah.
walks back after they
Made
get the first
no
blood.
sense.
TL just wins that hard. So, yeah, to comment on TL, because I didn't really talk about them. I'm talking more about EG. Bwipo had a bad series. Bwipo had
Okay.
actually a pretty rough series.
Yeah.
He
You got caught
tweeted
a lot.
afterwards. Yeah, he got caught a lot, and he also just was misplaying on Graves a lot too. His GPU was actually fine. It was actually not bad, but his Graves was really bad. It's normally insane, but his Graves that one game was really bad, and he tweeted himself after they won the series. I guess I just play tanks all the time. So he's self-aware.
Yeah.
This is no knock on Blippo at all, right? Everybody has bad
Right.
series every now and then. I actually think it's exciting. Blippo very clearly had a bad series. Even Bjergsen, he didn't play very well in the early game situations. He played a lot of. He died to ganks that I feel like he really shouldn't have
Hmm.
a couple times in the game. And he missed a couple charms that I really think he shouldn't have missed. It felt like, ooh, that guy was basically stunned and you still missed him. But that's okay. You landed your Everfrost and he still dies, so we'll just let it
Yep.
go. Um, I think if this team plays like as in Bwipo is not inting and Bjergsen is landing all of his stuff, and I think if Santorin, when he's on Viego, if he understands his role more as a carry and less as a facilitator, because in that game where they lost as Viego, I think it was game 2, you kept seeing um, Santorin wanting to get in there and start the fight. Where I feel like when you're Viego in these situations, you actually should wait to go in later and be the cleanup crew and
Right.
let your team die a little bit. And it's like he doesn't want to do that because he's so used to being the facilitator and
Hmm.
being the person that goes in and he helps the other team do
Yeah.
well. Um, yeah, it would just be nice to see him just sort of be like, "Hey, I'm Viego. I in this certain situations, me going in first is usually not the best. I need to get resets. That's our win condition.
Hmm.
Um, so these little 3 things that can improve definitely by 2 weeks for Team Liquid. It's going to be an incredibly exciting matchup between two high-level teams. T100 Thieves. I think they're both really good right now. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the series was the worst news possible for 100 Thieves. I think that they had a lot of hype going in, they had a lot of momentum going in, but then Liquid's like, hey, we just got all of our like weaknesses exposed, but we didn't lose, so we don't, feel down about it. This was the best series to be like, hey, we need to get better at level ones. We need to practice that. Like we were practicing during the regular season, so like you could tell that Liquid had some ideas, but there was definitely rust. You don't run 4 into 4 people as GP after getting first blood. That doesn't make any sense at level 1, right?
No,
Hmm.
yeah.
Against 380 carries, right? Like that was a hard int. So this is great for them, and I think that Liquid showed some resilience. They got a lot of practice in the things they need to, and now they can go into the weekend and be like, or 2 weekends now. They get 2 weeks to practice, and they
Hmm.
could just prepare, and they can be confident, but also like show up. Like C9's in the opposite boat, where like we got exposed, and like what do we do now?
Yeah.
We're gonna get quadra banned next week too, and I
Yeah.
don't know like what the plan is. Maybe they can come back. I might even bet on them by the end of the show, but it's a lot worse of a game. One, you learned a lot. I don't think C9 learned a lot against 100 Thieves. I
Dude,
really don't.
they were
Yeah.
so afraid of Sumday's Malphite that Graves and Tryndamere went open through the whole series, man. That's how afraid Summit is of Sumday's Malphite. It is so hilarious thinking about that.
Wow.
It was awful, dude.
Well,
That
here's a
was clash level drafting right there.
well here's a
I love
question
it.
then for next week, because we have C9 versus Golden Guardians and EG versus FlyQuest. What do you guys think would be most likely where we would most likely see upset, quote unquote? Would it be C9 versus Golden Guardians or EG versus Fly? And I think maybe from our discussion so far with how we've been kind of pooping on C9, I think maybe that might be where the upset is. I don't know. What do you guys think?
This is a tough one because I do think that Fly is a better team than Golden Guardians. I would take them in a head-to-head at least. But man, with the way Impact's playing, I don't see EG ever losing to Fly. Like it's just such a fat top dip between Impact and Kumo that I really don't think anyone's gonna lose that. Licorice, on the other hand, right? If you can figure out the Malphite tech, the secret code to beating Summit, I think Golden Guardians has a real, genuine chance of, it's not in their favor. I'm not gonna bet on Golden Guardians, but
I mean, if they just take
chance.
if they can just take the basic concept or strategy of planned shutdown Summit, then they should be okay. But I don't know how. I mean, to my knowledge, I don't know if Licorice can kind of play those. I mean, type champs.
He can play. We've seen him play a lot of Ornn on C9.
Yeah,
so he can play them. We just don't know if he wants to because he's finally unleashed from C9, right? He's just like, I'm on Golden Guardians, lower tier roster. I just want to play carries every game, right? That's what it kind of feels like. But honestly, to me, it's not. It's like Licorice. He can play Malphite, Ornn, and they can camp the crap out of Summit. But I mean, Berserker doesn't have to play against 100 Thieves. Berserker gets to play against Golden Guardians. He'll just 1v9. Just give him Zeri, give him Jinx, dude. You can put 4 bots and Berserker on a carry champion, and he'll win like half of the LCS games. Like the guy's too good. Berserker's too nuts.
Nice.
So I don't think Golden Guardians will actually beat C9, but if there was a series, it would be that one. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't
so you think that one's more likely to happen than FlyQuest?
It's more likely, but it's not actually going to because. Berserker is just too good. Like yeah, he had to play against 100 Thieves, a really good team, like 1v5ing, right? He can probably 1v5 against Golden Guardians. They're not good enough to stop him. So
okay, so you say that pretty much C9 and EG will make it through.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I also think C9 and EG will make it through. I don't think that EG losing to FlyQuest is an upset, but I think it's more likely that it happens. I think FlyQuest. Don't want to have short-term memory, but FlyQuest was pretty close to EG in the whole regular season, if not better at times, right? They only at the end did they stumble a bit, but they had time to watch. EG literally throw all of their strats out the window, and that's great. But for C9 and GG, it's the same sentiment as Mitchell. There's not enough skill on GG to force them into hole. If you 4-ban Summit, right? What is GG gonna do? That's the problem. Like Licorice, I do expect Licorice to win at least one game in laning phase and smack Summit early game, right? From maybe some jungle attention, maybe whatever. But they're not gonna convert it as well or as cleanly. So yeah, I think FlyQuest could win, but I don't think either would be an upset. I don't think that would be an upset, and there's just not a world I can see GG as being C9. It might be closer than we expected because C9 might be tilted, but they'll still win.
Yeah, I just don't know. Golden Guardians is a good team, but I just think of all the games that they threw, and I don't know if they can do, even as bad as C9 is. Like I think they could still do it. Like it just doesn't. I just don't see it happening. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of just the gameplay as a whole right now, the game state. And we've kind of mentioned this in our past podcast, but this whole play style of early game dominance versus late game scaling, right? That's always kind of been a thing, right? The two kind of dominant play styles in League of Legends. And, we've brought it up a lot this season because of the objective bounties and how, because of that, we've seen a lot more comebacks this season, right? And, you're probably saying, why are we talking about it again? Well, I happened to watch a game off of your guys' recommendation recently, which was in the LCK, and it was Gen G versus Damwon Kia in a 5-game series. And Game 5 is really what I wanted to spotlight because I think this best exemplifies this classic battle philosophy of early game dominance versus late game scaling. And just to TLDR that game, basically Damwon picks Nidalee, Renekton, and Jace, right? And for the first few levels or minutes of the game, Nidalee is just basically in Hecarim's jungle the whole time, just following him around, killing him. He's getting support from his laners. I mean, you talk about the best possible early game start you could have. This was it. I mean, they were up like, I don't even know, like 5k gold in like 5 minutes or 6 minutes. It looked absolutely doomed. And so Gen G, you're like, how are they even going to play the game? Hecarim can't even farm anything. But somehow, some way, they scale. They have, champs like Xayah, Yuumi, Ornn, and they somehow win this stinking game where, you felt at a certain point that it was over for DK because they had hit that mark where, yeah, okay, they've outscaled you. You're not going to be able to win anymore. And so I bring that game up, and I bring this up again because, in my opinion, this game right here, to me, has solidified my argument for that late game scaling is the way to win this game at this point in time. I think we've seen, before, like, LPL, where they were kind of making popular that aggressive early style game, being able to close out. I don't think that's possible here because we just saw probably the best possible early game ever, and it's still lost. So give me your thoughts on that whole debate too, and whether you agree, disagree, or if you have an extra take on that.
Yeah, so I think that the way I'll handle this is we can kind of look at a spectrum of early game to the left here, or wherever you're seeing my screen.
Yeah.
Early game over here, late game over here, right? This is the most early game you could possibly make a comp, and the most late game you could possibly make a comp. If you're on either ends, your draft is bad, I think. And it's too one-dimensional. It's too easy to break down. You'll still win games, but you don't have a good comp, right? If you're too early game or too late game focused. I think that the best comps lie in the middle. And when it comes to that Renekton and Nidalee Jace, they're pretty close to that almost a pure early game comp, and they're against actually almost a very closely almost pure late game comp.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that with the way the meta is in objective bounties, that the pure late game comp will actually probably still beat the pure early game comp. They're not that great though, honestly. But late game is probably beating out in that sense, right? But I think the best way to draft, and this is not necessarily going to align with maybe any person out there, any personalities that we've heard. This is just my personal way, is that you can draft late game while also having champions that can function in the early game, right? So a champion that's great like this, who I think is super broken, is Viego, right? He actually has a really good clear. He's got a solid, okay early game. He's not the best early game jungler in the game, but he will be very solid on the power level throughout the entire time of the match, and he will scale pretty well too. So there are plenty of champions that fit into that category though, right? Most melee tank supports fit into that category. Extremely powerful in the early game, very, very strong, useful in the late game still. And that's why I think a lot of pro players are afraid of enchanters. They're good at harassing the other game, right? But they're not actually strong at all inning in the early game, but they scale so well.
Yeah.
And there are certain ADCs that, like, maybe there are times where you see so much Varus, right? It's because, well, he's so good in the early game, and he actually scales pretty decently when Varus is strong in the meta. I think there are champions, and Jace, right? Like, I actually think a lot of players like Jace because he's so dominant and strong in the early game and laning phase, but his scaling is actually better than most people realize. You just have to play him differently. You're no longer really going in for autos and going in for big melee trades, but your spamming poke ability is so uninteractive, right?
Yeah.
So you have this early game champion that can scale into late game as a poke champion. So I think focusing on champions like these is what makes the best kind of League of Legends the best draft.
Yeah.
And then there are these champions that are so over-indexed in early game and so over-indexed in late game that you should only really play them in very unique situations, counter-picking comps, right? Or like fitting into a strategy because of unique interactions. Otherwise, you should really try and stay in the middle, where it's a champion with decent amount of agency in the early game that still scales well. So
let me, before you get in there, Kevin, just because this question popped in my head, Mitchell, then, so would you then, knowing that the game seems to favor, I mean, just based on this observation, seems to favor late game scaling comps, and I know you said, you want to kind of be in the middle, though, would you then alter your draft at this point to include maybe more options for late scaling as opposed to early game? Obviously, you say you don't want to be so extreme, but would you put more of that weighted, draft into late game scaling?
Yeah, so you can move the lever a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like based on how the meta kind of goes. And I think that like we're seeing both TL and 100 Thieves kind of do this, right? They have an early game
Mhm.
jungler like Lee Sin, like J4, and sometimes they'll put in a Viego in there, right?
True.
But then, hey, when they have Viego, they have like Ari, bit more early game focused, right? So
Yeah.
I think the lever is definitely you want to go a bit more into the late game because we're picking Jinx and Zarya and Aphelios a lot still. We're picking Ornn and Sion a lot still. So yeah, I think it's probably more skewed towards late game, but definitely like I think the best teams they do a little bit of both. And right now the meta is calling for slightly more scaling than early game champs.
Hey, you're pretty smart there, Mitchell. You're pretty smart.
Thank you.
That was some insightful conversation. I learned something today. I like that. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think what Mitchell's talking about has like a lot of merit to it. I think it's to some extent the only commentary I think ever talks about this often is like Ellis always talks about team themes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
When you pick Jace, it's not that he's a bad late game. It's just he needs to fit the theme, right? If your theme is like, they have a bunch of squishies on their team. Let's just take them down so they can't even take a fight and they have to force bad fights. Suddenly scaling doesn't matter. Anyone who's played an ARAM in their life, either in a real game or in the ARAM mode, knows when you're a squishy, right? And you lose half your health because Jace EQ at level 6, at level 18, you're like, how is this a bad late game character? And then the Ornn on your team's like, I don't give a shit, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the difference, right? You need a draft with that theme in mind. If you just pick Renekton in Italy because you saw like Korea pick it once, like it's not gonna go anywhere. Also, it is egregious that after watching the game, like Renekton Italy fall flat on its face in other regions playoffs right beforehand, you thought, yeah, I could do that better though. The only
Inspired thought. Inspired really
exactly.
thought, didn't he? He thought he was
Yeah,
Canyon.
he's like, I'm the LEC MVP. They can't do anything to touch this. The last thing I'll leave it on, because I think Mitchell touched a lot of things I wanted to like mention and didn't have words for, was that Renekton is like 10 and 14 or something in China right now. China has played Renekton since the dawn of time. Like last year at MSI, they pulled it out, or World, they just pull it out no matter what meta it is, right? And if they can't make it work, if they can't get a positive win rate, please, for the love of God, at least pick it when it makes sense. Don't B5 it after your team sacrifices everything in draft, or R5 it. When your team sacrifices everything in draft for you, Summit, and then you last pick Renekton, and I'm like, what? It's so egregious, man. That guy needs to learn how to play other characters, or C9 just needs to learn how to like use a guy who can absorb 4 bans and win with it. Bjergsen absorbed like 5 bans before in TSM, and he still had a 6th and 7th best champion he could play.
So it's Zillion.
Yeah.
You love Zillion up? All right. But Summit doesn't have that, so they both need to adapt, right? And they're not doing it fast enough.
Or just ban Malphite and pick Graves or Tryndamere. Okay. For me, when I was in draft, I was like, dude, Graves and Tryndamere just falling. Okay, they're afraid of the Malphite, right? I'm like, why don't they just ban Malphite, man? Just get that crap out of there.
I don't know what was stopping them. Were they like playing a challenge mode where they couldn't ban Malphite? I was like, what?
It's just just pick Tryndamere or Graves. It's like his 2 favorite champions all year long.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know, man. I don't know what C9's doing.
Okay, well, I got one more thing I wanted to discuss, unless there's things you guys want to add after that. But I want to talk a little bit about Danny's tweet that he made about Champions Queue. Made a little Google Doc that he wrote about, his thoughts on, why he didn't play, because that was kind of a thing, right? Like with Champions Queue, people were watching to see if the pros were playing, and that kind of became a thing where, in past podcasts, we've been talking about just the kind of attitude, the mentality of our players compared to those overseas. And, his reasoning is just, TLDR, and this is not a hate, rant on Danny at all. But he basically said he was being honest. He's like, I enjoy 1v1s, 2v2s. I think those are helpful. But he honestly doesn't like the voice comms. He just wanted to kind of almost not be in try hard mode, where he could pick just random picks, try new things, and do solo queue with friends, and kind of not have that high pressure moment all the time. And, he kind of got a lot of backlash for it, because it kind of was just like, hey, pros have been wanting this and whatever, and now they're making all these excuses. One, I agree with that. I don't like the excuse making, but at least Danny's freaking good, right? Like Danny is good. So, I kind of give him credit that, okay, maybe you don't agree with his philosophy, but not everyone learns the same or gets better the same. And he's obviously doing well and getting better. But it did lead to a lot of like, I guess just people like on the internal side of things of Riot, different organizations kind of like blasting the community for, saying these things to Danny. And while I don't agree like with his case per se, I don't like the fact that, all these internal people are kind of pooping on the fans for wanting, more from their players or, demanding more from NA players. Like this really has, and we touched on this, but the import rule, right? I was a hard believer that I didn't want to lift that import rule restriction. I wanted to keep it NA, so that way we have our own talent and all this stuff. But after Champions Queue, like, and exposing kind of like the work ethic of NA, I'm all for lifting that sucker. Honestly, like I'm gonna use Kevin's word. It's egregious to me that these freaking players are like complaining about things that, that they've been asking for so long. And now that we have it, they make all these excuses. So I wanted to go on a little rant, get your thoughts on it too, because like I said, we have talked about it before, but I go back to that import rule. At this point, I'm like, if NA doesn't want it, let's give it to those that are hungry, that will grind. I mean, I even saw some clips of Shen Yi in Champions Queue, and they were kind of memeing because he was like, yeah, he was getting mad and he was like yelling. He wasn't really getting mad, but like it was kind of like a Tyler 1 reaction where he's like yelling. He's like, "You have no flat, you have no mana. Why are you telling me to go?" and all this stuff. And people loved it because it showed like, one, he really wanted to win, but also he wasn't that serious. Like they were friends, but. Anyways, give me your thoughts on that and the whole mentality in NA, and do you agree with the import rule thing that I want it to be lifted?
I'll reference Alistair once more because he's not here to talk about himself.
Okay.
Is that there are a pool of amateur players sitting around who would love to get their hands on Champions Queue, who would love to have an opportunity to show themselves. So I don't know how to feel about lifting the import rule, because I think if we lifted the import rule, all these huge generation of amateur players that are waiting to find their shot in NA would actually be so locked out of it because they would just never see the light of day. And we would lose out on generational talents like Danny and maybe JoJo, right? So that's the kind of flip side I think to it. We'd be sacrificing this long-term development for basically short-term results, right? And hoping that, it didn't take long for Summit to kind of be like, oh, you already started to turn kind of into an NA monkey. Like, it didn't take very long. It wasn't even a full split. You've already gone full North American monkey.
He knew he was winning MVP, and he was like, that's it, boys. I can throw in the towel.
I got paid. I'm good. Yep. Yeah, because, I mean, honestly, Summit guaranteed he'll get signed no matter what. Like, no matter how badly these playoffs go, he'll get signed next year. Doesn't matter.
For sure.
So, I don't know how I feel about lifting the import rule. When it comes to Danny's tweet specifically, I actually was okay with it. I think the excuses that he gave, it's like, guys, we can't remember. This kid's 19, I think.
I know.
He's 18 or 19.
Yeah.
He's literally talking and typing like he's just kind of telling us his feelings. Like he's not like, hey, I'm a pro player. These are the reasons I haven't done this. Let me list it out very PR. He's just like, hey, I'm just a guy playing League. I don't really like Champions Queue. It's a personal thing. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a personal thing. I don't really like it. And he said himself at the very end of it, I know that these personal issues aren't enough, so I'm going to go play it anyways.
Yeah, it was a good thing. He was nice.
That's a sign of maturity to me. That's a sign of something I actually would prefer in a pro player than them maybe playing Champions Queue and biting their tongue and being like, I hate this, right? And not saying anything. I think I prefer Danny's route, where he tells us his feelings, and we can relate to maybe other pro players. It's like, hey man, sometimes your job sucks and you have to do it, but it's okay to complain, and it's okay to have not the greatest excuses, because we're all human. We can all relate, right? Like, yeah, he doesn't like talking to randos. That's fine. Okay? You still got to do it because it's your job, but it's okay to not like that, and it's okay to admit that. And I wish that people didn't crap on him for that, because they see it more as the lens of, hey, this is a business, and this tweet is like a business tweet and a PR statement. But really, for him, and I hope other people see this, this is him like reaching out as a person, talking to his fans as like a 19-year-old kid who's trying to figure out how to be an adult and live life.
Yeah.
So I honestly give a lot of kudos to Danny, and I think that as a community, I hope we can be more inviting and welcoming So people just talking about their feelings rather than everything's got a PR. Everything's gonna be double down and analyzed. You saw Double's video, right, where he's just like, I don't like this part. This touch doesn't make. These just sound like excuses. And I was like, that's exactly what they are. They are excuses, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay.
So, I like Danny. Seems like a good kid.
Yeah.
I think for Danny, I think personally he had a pretty as good a response as you could expect from a 19-year-old who is openly admitting he's letting himself put his feet to the fire where he's like, I'm not playing Champs Queue. I will try it even though I dislike it. So in that sense, I think it was totally fine. I do respect that, and I think that more players should be more open about that. Flame or not, having that connect. That's how you connect with Danny, right? If you agree with him, you're like, nice. He's a guy I can get behind. And if you don't agree with that, if he grows from it, you still can respect that. I will say that I think for me, my reaction as well as the fan reaction that I saw across was it's not necessarily Danny being the issue because he's a good player and he showed off in the playoffs why he's a good player. It's more that when you're a new player going to the scene, where are you going to learn these habits? Where are you going to learn what's normal, what's not, right? It's from the culture of the pro scene.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's more he's kind of he's like that smoke in the wherever there's smoke, there's fire. If he, the 19-year-old kid who just joined the league last year, is telling me this is how he feels about it, is this the excuse that's just kind of running around right now? And that's how I feel. I think people are frustrated because he's the only outlet to put it into. But he's not the problem, right? Danny's one of our best NA talents. There's Blabber, there's Danny, there's JoJo, there's a few others, right? So he's not the problem, but he's showing where the problem is coming from. It's the NA mentality of to me, if you're not comfortable with something, that's fine. However, you do need to push yourself out of your comfort zone sometimes for your job, especially you're a professional being paid a lot of money and a lot of expectations. If you aren't making results, there are no excuses allowed. If you are making results Wonder and Wonder practice, by the way, let's not say that all the memes were true, right?
Mm-hmm.
He definitely might have slacked off sometimes, but so did Impact, so did other players X-Smithy, right?
Double
right?
Lip.
Double Lip himself, the one who's responding to these things, definitely has slacked off. Right?
Spring split doesn't matter, guys. I'll just go 9th place.
Yeah.
Literally the guy who started the mentality of spring split doesn't matter. Whether it's true or not, he started that being popular to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And that's not great for the scene either. So what I'm saying is Danny's not the problem. Danny shouldn't personally have gotten that much flame, but it's just no one else is speaking up to this extent about it.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are speaking up, maybe Fudge has mentioned it a few times too, and he also got flame.
Fudge should get flamed more after last weekend. Ooh.
Oh, for sure, right? People just bring it up because they're all waiting, and it's the frustration. So to me, import rule, should we remove it? Honestly, at this point, our viewership can't get worse. So in my mind, it might be more exciting to have Faker come, he would never come, but someone like that, right? If Rookie didn't join V5, right? And he's just
V5,
well, I had three bad years on IG. I guess I'll just go to NA and cash out, right? Then yeah, we could have had him maybe. It's possible instead of whatever we have. So I think that we need some pressure, and if the NA players aren't going to be the best, then we have two choices. We either become one of the competitive leagues, so people watch for that, or you do what's more realistic and what all the leagues that have tons of viewership, like LFL and all these regional leagues, or Brazil, which is a very commonly cited example.
Yep.
Let's change the product. We're not about being the best of the best. We could be, and that would be awesome if we do. But it's more about let's be entertaining. Let's be noble, likable personalities. The Japanese and the Korean baseball leagues don't have the best players, as far as I know, right? They might have 1 or 2 stars, but go to watch them. It's because they don't sell themselves we're world class, we're the best, and we're trying to be world champions. They sell themselves on this is something you and your friends can get around, talk about, and enjoy. You start with that, and then eventually, as more people are inspired, you'll become more and more competitive, right? Because everyone's watching. People grow up thinking, I want to do that. Or people grow up thinking that's a respectable job. Either of those will help longevity as well as talent attraction. Right now, it's just we are supposed to be world beaters. We're supposed to be top 4 worlds, and we can't make it out of groups almost ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's then of course people are going to atrophy and just go watch other leagues. The NA fans didn't disappear. They're just watching LCK or LPL or LEC now. More so.
They just stopped watching.
Or stopped watching, right? They started watching for LS and then they left because it was the classic NA. We can't keep doing this.
Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy because I think I think with viewership being like the way that it is, like I honestly feel like the fact that, because what I was upset about was that like we'd have these internal people from different orgs. I don't want to name any names, but like basically clapping back at the fans saying like, oh, you're demanding so much. But I'm like, dude, we are like, you're losing us. Don't you see? Like you're losing the viewership. Like I'm sorry, but last time I checked, fans are the ones that kind of like make sure these orgs exist, like, right? Because it's our fandom that is interested. And so I just don't like it when people are always like, you shouldn't be like this. I get it. Like there are definitely some over the top, like, you know, people out there, but as a whole, like we can demand like more from our region, those who are represented. Yeah, we're the customers. Yeah. So I was kind of upset like with some of these, you know, like people, analysts or people, whatever, kind of trying to, you know, be the holier than thou type deal on there. I'm like, no. So yeah, that's kind of how I was feeling.
Yeah, I wanted to add in, like, I think some of these teams and even the orgs are just forgetting, like, that VC capital they're getting, the venture capital they're getting, VC capital just stands for venture capital, I guess. That venture capital they're getting, right? And the sponsor Celsius, like, they're not coming out of nowhere. All this esports hype is coming out of like a very, very prime demographic of like 18 plus adults, right? Soon to be adults or adults who are going to spend a lot of money in NA watching their product. If you keep disparaging the fans, like when they care, and you're like, hey, why are you guys like getting so like up in arms about it? Like, why do you care so much? Why are you flaming so much?
Yeah.
The worst thing that could happen is we just don't give a crap.
Yes,
we just go watch something else, or we just don't stop watching League or stop watching esports. Then when you don't get your Madison Square Garden paycheck for being in perennially bottom 5, right? Or you don't get your like State Farm and Bud Light sponsorships, then you're gonna be like, wait, I can't be a Twitter analyst anymore, or my job as like a team, like the 5th coach on a team isn't viable anymore. Weird. How did that happen? Oh, because no one cares about our product. See, I would say like if you're just cherry picking like extreme fans, that's like saying like you're cherry picking like someone's comment on Facebook and you're like, wow, look at this like group this person who represents this whole group. Look how awful they are. I'm like, obviously that's not everyone, right?
Yeah.
The main thread is like, and if you're just like, you know, a mature individual, the main thread is that we just care about our league and we want us to be competitive. We used to give excuses, right? But we've pretty much like given as much reasonable support to our players. We gave them time. We let them try to develop. We gave them champions queue, like their ping argument, their like high level solo queue argument, like all of that stuff is like out the window, and they just don't use it. It's not like a few don't use it. It's like
a lot,
abnormally high number of people are not using it, right? And they're just like, and the whole time it's not like just because of the elo issues. It's because we just, you know, it's not the greatest, you know. It's like,
I like how you guys, if you're listening, you can't see it, but Kevin did a little head
this
shake.
Is what it's just. This is how I imagine they're just like trying to come up with the next goalpost to move to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, y'all are just gonna just move out of the league at this rate. Like, there's just no one's gonna watch.
Yeah, exactly. You fix one thing and then they got another problem that you gotta fix, and then all of a sudden you fixed all their problems, and they came and they already took your money. They took your paycheck and they went home and retired. Right.
Exactly.
I honestly, I'm gonna call out a certain person, a certain org.
Right.
Peter Dunn. Honestly,
that's who I was thinking.
Really rubbed me wrong, man. His
he
tweets,
does.
I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
That is frustrating to hear from a coach. I've
never seen him tweet so much, but I don't know. Like he's just.
I don't like him.
I do not like a lot of the statements that he puts out there. Again, like
you can not like his statements. I just kind of don't like him. I don't know. It's a little too personal. I never met him, but the way he writes his tweets is so frustrating. I hate it.
A lot of sarcasm.
He's a little jerk, man. I don't like him.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
You know what?
MVP balance, it was so terrible.
And you know what? We're not like Ryan and Dorse, so we can say whatever we want. So it's like, yeah, right. That's right, Peter Dunn. You heard it right
my
here.
farts. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't actually. If we ever work together in the future, I hope you can look back and laugh at this. Just
somebody. Yeah, exactly.
I told you to eat my farts. Yeah.
Remember that?
Times, right?
Those are good times.
I'm kidding. Please.
Well, I mean, I think one thing is evident by the passion in our voice is that we are passionate. Like we are the fans. We are the target demographic of like LCS watchers. That's one of the reasons we have this podcast, is because we like talking about it and discussing like how we can get better because we care about this region. So is there any final things you guys wanted to talk about before we wrap this episode up? Guys good?
I really liked the MF counter pick. Zaya's been seeing a lot of play. The
Yes.
MF is, oh my god, playing Zaya against MF is just like, I just can't walk up, man. Like, you get circled on with her E, with MFE, and
Circle,
you're like,
yeah.
I just can't move. I just can't do
Mhm.
anything. I gotta leave the circle or I cannot participate. And then oh, okay, circle's gone. I'm gonna come back in. I'm gonna do some Zaya stuff. I just get ulted, and then I have to ult and run away. It's, what a great counter pick from EG. That was
Yeah.
nice to see. Shout out to that. I think yeah, there's a lot of really strong champions out there that do fit in that middle sort of thing that we were talking about, where
Mhm.
hey, they got some good early game agency and they scale decently well. MF's a champion, not the best late game scaling champion in the game by any means, but
Right.
she'll do damage throughout the entire game from
Yeah.
beginning to end. She will be a very strong, solid damage dealing champion. Got a lot of strengths to her, so um,
It's
I'm
interesting.
hoping.
Is there any other picks, that you could think off the top of your head that kind of fit in that middling thing that we might see that we haven't seen already? Because it's going to be the same patch. So,
Okay.
and if not, that's okay. I just, you were talking about it, so I was like, is there any others?
I don't have one of. I mean, a very like one that's talked about in this podcast a lot is Karma. Has one of the
Yeah.
most disgusting early games in the whole game.
Oh
Very
yeah.
powerful, very dominant. Just like ton of damage, ton of pokes, ton of all-in potential. Also, one of the best scaling enchanters in the game too.
I'd love to see Karma. Yeah.
So I actually I don't think there's if you can get away with her and have your tank supporty needs filled
Yep.
elsewhere, like you should just be picking Karma every game. Fills into
By
that
the
niche
way,
very
I've been
well.
spamming Karma thanks to this podcast and the recommendations you guys and I've been killing it. So I love that. All right, cool. Anything
Nice,
else,
nice.
Kevin? You got any final thoughts? Good to go.
I think my final thoughts would just be like, don't be surprised if C9 just bounces back and looks super hype again next week. They're not against a good team, so don't take too much out of it.
Mhm.
They're not against a terrible team either, just not against like the strongest team, right? And then I saw the new patch notes for 12.7 preview is on r/league right now. The only thing I want to mention was Ryze is getting nerfed again.
Oh
He's
my
got like a
gosh.
44 to 47% win rate in solo queue right now,
Yikes.
Oh
and
my
he's getting nerfed
gosh.
again. Obviously, it's because of pro play or whatever, but I'm like, dude, like we need a different patch for pro
Yeah.
play and regular play. Like it's not okay. Like how can you be a Ryze one trick in the real
I
game?
love
actually?
Ryze too. That's the thing. I love
He's so
playing
cool,
Ryze,
but, like-
but yeah, you can't.
Dude, he's not even that good in pro play right now, man.
I
He's just
know.
like
He's not.
he's a scrim god for sure. Like it's got to be a scrim god champion because when it gets to actual pro play matches, the best team in the world in T1 can't even win on him, man. They
Yeah.
have like I think they have a negative win rate on Rise technically. Oh man, yeah.
It's not just the
last-
best team in the world; it's the best Ryze player in history, or at
Yes,
least one of
yeah,
them, right?
you're right.
That's true. Yeah, Faker. It's literally Faker.
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, I wanted to say something and I forgot. Gosh darn it! And I got caught up. So
Dun,
if this is in the podcast, I guess we
dun.
just cut it out. Wait, hold on. No. Give me a second. Give me a second. I got this.
For those watching on YouTube, this is not going to be edited out, so you'll see Mitchell thinking.
Oh, I got it. Okay, I have my predictions for how the rest of the tournament is gonna go down.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is a bit of a wild prediction, but
Okay.
this is how I think it's gonna go down. And you know, I'm okay with locking it in. I'm okay. I'll stick
okay.
with to it for the rest of the playoffs.
Remember this moment.
Yeah. So C9 and EG are gonna win next week.
Okay.
TL is gonna beat 100 Thieves the week after.
Okay.
And then 100 Thieves is gonna beat whoever. I don't care who C9 or EG wins. I
Yep.
don't care. 100 Thieves is gonna beat them.
Uh-huh.
And then 100 Thieves will meet TL in the finals and win. I think 100 Thieves is gonna win the split.
Wow.
So I think that TL will be the better team coming into that second week, but I have no proof or evidence. I just have this feeling that 100 Thieves will take that and run through the lower bracket with more games, more playoff games, more experience, more time to learn about each other and figure stuff out, and that they will become the better team. That's just my thought.
Well, you know I can't end it now because I'm looking at Kevin's face and I see steam rising. Kevin, I just got to know, do you have any rebuttal to that? Do you agree with Mitchell's prophecy here?
I agree with probably
Look at his
everything
face.
up until the last result, right?
Yeah,
It's
okay.
going to be the better team.
All right.
I also voted 100 Thieves to win, by the way. I voted 100 Thieves to win last week. And like it was kind of weird at the time. I think 3 of us or 2 of us did. It was weird at the time, but now we look like we knew what we were talking about because we kind of did.
Yeah.
I think Liquid's going to win the finals. I mean, I've always said this.
Yeah.
I almost always say that unless like it's a really bad year for Liquid, then I won't say it. So yeah, I mean,
I'm with you,
agree
Kevin.
up until the finals, Liquid's just going to destroy them.
I'm on this
They
boat.
have more to gain, right, for more time played together because they haven't
Yeah.
played together as much, and they're improving that quickly.
Exactly. Well, Mitchell, at least if you're right, I mean, that would be
It's
not
spicy.
fun for us, but it'd be spicy. So,
Spicy.
all right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. I want to thank my co-hosts, Kevin and Mitchell, and of course, Alistair, even though you're not here, shout out to you wherever you are. But thanks again for listening. But until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Peace.